Alright guys, last part for this episode, context menus. Okay, if you hover over an object and press circle, you get to see its context menu. This also works in the vehicle assembly building, and most parts have different functions, but there's a few parts that don't. Fuel tanks don't have any functions, engines do. If you press circle on an engine, you can manually turn off the gimbal. You can set the thrust limiter to a certain amount of thrust, and you can activate the engine and deactivate it, and manually, separate from your staging, yeah. So that's for engines, and then fuel tanks do nothing. You can just see how much fuel each individual tank has. Decouplers, you can enable and disable crossfeed and decouple them manually, and then we have a couple gadgets on here to display a couple of the part functions that you might be seeing in the game. These are only simple part functions. More advanced part functions will come later. First off, we have some solar panels here, right? These are for generating electricity whenever in the view of sunlight. If you press on them, you can extend them manually. This is by pressing circle, by the way, and then you just press extend, right? And you can extend each one individually, and you can retract them again if you want to from that menu. Solar panels get destroyed in the atmosphere, so make sure that you don't go into the atmosphere with these things open. Make sure you close them first. So that's the solar panels. Now I'll demonstrate the landing legs. Landing legs, same thing, you can extend and retract them manually with the context menus. These are just some batteries. I figured I'd showcase these anyway because they're important. They store a bunch of electricity, so you can hold more electricity on your ship. That way, when you do go into a spot where you can't be constantly generating power, you have a backup supply of power to run on until the sun comes out again. You can also use thermoelectric generators to mitigate that, but it's good to have these on the ship anyway, these batteries. So let's talk about oh, the ship's rotating. I'm gonna let it there we go, settle on prograde, and don't move again. Ship was moving because I have my cursor out. Alright, so yeah, there's a shielded docking port on the front here, right? Let's say you wanted to open the shield. Context menu is good for that. You can control the ship from here. You can enable and disable crossfeed, and that's for if you're docked to a ship and you want to like transfer fuel between the ship and the ship you're docked to. Then you can turn off crossfeed if you don't want to do that. I don't know why you would want to do that, but the function is there just in case. If you press this little button here, this little gray button in the corner here, as you can see, you can pin the menu up so that it can't move, right? So it can't be taken away. And then you can open another menu with it. And you could pin that one up as well. And you can just pin as many menus up as you want if you want them to stay up. But I'm going to unpin them because they're in the way. So make sure that you know what that little gray button does, because it's important. Now I can close the context menu now that they're unpinned. So now, this is the last thing for this episode before I end it off. Actually, nope. Never mind. I got two more things to talk about. Got to talk about crew transferring and EVA. But first, let's talk about fuel transfer. This is not very well explained in any of the resources in game, like the KSpedia or online, really. Transferring fuel. On computer, you can just click one tank, then hold down Alt and click another tank, and you can transfer fuel between them, as long as they're attached to the same ship, right, or docked to each other. But in here, there is no Alt button to use. There's just modifier buttons. So what you do is you click on a fuel tank, right? I need to go over this because it's important for later, and it's important to know for any new players. And I can pin this menu up, right? And then for demonstration purposes, I will transfer some fuel, a little bit of fuel from this tank here. So now as you can see, this menu is pinned up. Now I can select this other menu. Make sure this menu is pinned up. If you don't pin it up, you won't be able to select another menu. So now that I have it pinned up, I can select this other fuel tank menu, and now as you can see the buttons that pop up here, I can transfer fuel and oxidizer into this tank. This is really important because there's a lot of advanced missions later on that will require you to transfer fuel. So I'm just going to transfer it all back now because I want fuel in those tanks. But yeah, that's resource transferring, really simple. Works for fuel, and I think it works for xenon gas as well. Doesn't work for electricity, I don't think, though, because electricity just works for every component wherever you hook up batteries on the ship, so you won't need to be transferring electricity or anything like that. But that's resource transferring. I'll unpin this menu now and get rid of it. And now it's EVA. So if you click on your Kerbals, you can get them out of the ship by pressing EVA. And you have some EVA controls. Let's start by letting go here. Alright, so now we've let go and we're just flying through space, right? If I want to stop that, I can press X to enable the RCS and stabilize it. Right, and then if I press L2, he goes up. If I press R2, he goes down. Forward and back are forward and back on the joystick. Left and right is left and right on the joystick. This is the left joystick, by the way, that we're doing all these controls on. And then if you want to turn off his jetpack again, you press X, and he'll just float. So those are the EVA controls, really simple. Here's his EVA pack. When you're on the surface of a planet, you can take surface samples and plant flags, and you can also, when you're in Kerbal mode, you can have your Kerbal. Here, let me just demonstrate by going up to a solar panel here. You can have him repair a solar panel as long as he's close to it. I don't know why it's not working, but well, normally you can extend and retract solar panels. I'm sure there's a thing going on with the game right now, but yeah, if you're close enough, you can have your Kerbals manually extend and retract solar panels and repair wheels and repack parachutes and all that good stuff. And if you want to transfer them between parts, now that if you want to get them back in first, you roll up to a part and it'll tell you can tap the circle button, right? So let's grab. And then if I hold down the circle button for a little bit and let go, he'll board. So he's back in the main command pod, ready to go again. Now let's do crew transfer. So I click transfer crew here. If I right click on the cockpit, you see we have the functions here. You can turn on the lights. I guess I'll show off that too. And toggle torque, and so that determines whether reaction wheels are running or not. You can control it from here. Say you have multiple command pods, you can press on this one to control the vehicle from here. You can rename the vessel from here and classify it as something different. So see, I can rename it and I can classify it as like a lander or station or a probe or a rover or debris or whatever, but we're going to keep it as a ship. And you can transfer crew. It also holds some monopropellant and electric charge. So if I select a crew member here, I can transfer him to this part over here. And now he's moved to this crew cabin. So that's all the kind of context menus and everything. This is the end of this video. So I'll see you guys when we go to the moon.